Alright, so today we're going to be watching every single Guardsman Regiment explained by an Australian, Part 2, by Majorkill. As always, I'm going to be leaving a link to the original video and channel down in the description below, so go ahead and make sure that you check them out. I'm curious to just see how many more there are, because I think this video is a little bit longer than the first one. So I'm assuming there's going to be quite a bit more still that I haven't even seen, right? So, without further ado though, let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, really does help me a lot. Hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I do upload. And let's see how many more guard regiments we'll see in part 2.
G'day guys and gal. No, you're not seeing double and I understand the deja vu, but this is part 2 of every single Guardsman Regiment explained, as there was just way too many variants of cannon fodder for us to put into one video, without role-playing as literally any other Warhammer YouTuber who thinks a video being long makes it more digestible. Pro tip, videos are like wieners. The longer they are, the harder it will be to get your audience to go balls deep. I'm hoping people realize that this is part 2 and not just a random re-upload, otherwise this video will flop harder than me after a back-to-back morning tug. Video's only 30 seconds in and we already have 2 dick jokes, doing well. If you haven't already, I suggest watching part 1 of this video where I talk about friendly folks such as the Katachan jungle fighters and the Death Corps of Krieg, and you know, it gives me more watch time. But yeah, watch it after this, or come back to this one after you watch it, or, you know, watching them both twice is also an option. Before we get started, March. The season of, well, it really depends where in the world you are. For me, it's the season that brings the end to summer and the start of bulking season. For you, you get the March Surfshark VPN Majorkill sponsorship. Consistency is key, baby. You know the drill. The internet is a big scary place full of predators, oppressive governments, and bullshit inconsistent licensing deals that usually negatively affect Australia. However, all of these issues can be easily overcome with a VPN, or more simply put, just the press of Surfshark's button. Netflix library looking lonely and sad? Surfshark can fix that. Want to pretend you're an Australian to win the heart of that e-girl you keep spending money on? Surfshark can sort you out. Want to see what the internet looks like without an unspecified entity hunting you down? Surfshark has your back. What's even better is that using my link and code Majorkill below, you get 83% off and 3 months free. That value is very naughty. And if for some inconceivable apocalyptic reason that you aren't satisfied with your newfound internet superpowers, then Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over the remaining half of all
before he goes on, I don't want to interrupt his ad, because, you know, I understand that he's got to make money too, and Surfshark, I actually use Surfshark and NordVPN on both deployments. Both of them are honestly pretty good, but you know, hey, if you're a Surfshark fan, here you go. And as far as when you did mention about like the longer or shorter videos, personally me, just for me personally, like say if I were to listen away, right, I would like to prefer long ones just because it kind of gives more time for the person who's actually like reading it to kind of really like set the tone, create the atmosphere. I also do like short ones, but on the shorter side typically tends to be the more on the animation side, just because I understand that those are pretty difficult, and except for Hell's Reach was that anomaly where they would get longer but they were still insanely good. So but in any case, I like the longer story format, although I know that does make the video completely like maybe twice as long than what it would originally be. But I feel like that's kind of in the middle. What do you all think? Let me know down in the comments below if you like the longer ones, you like the shorter ones, or you kind of like a mix and match.
Imperial Guardsman regiments. There are a number of fan favorites in here, so just because I don't talk about our Kriegi boys doesn't mean you can't achieve a semi. That's 3 now. Let's get into it. Kicking this list back off, we have the Caledon Hunters, who look like GW were just trying to tick at least 5 different minority boxes. Or they just had a bunch of leftover parts that they kit bashed together. Either way, these vicious guardsmen are more or less feral, and whilst they are tough, they are incredibly undisciplined, and most of their motivation comes from trying to outflex each other. Now onto the Canuck Skull Takers, who are really cool and tough, but they get shat on very frequently. It's kind of a rule of Warhammer that if your only real art is a black and white kid's drawing, you don't have any plot armor. Hence these melee lovers lost their homeworld to chaos and in at least one circumstance got kidnapped by the Alpha Legion. But hey, they have tiger stripes, so it's okay. If you think the Skull Takers have it rough,
so they got kidnapped by the Alpha Legion, and I really know from what I do remember about them is that they're very secretive. You don't even know if they're technically a loyalist, if they're a traitor, what the hell are they actually doing, right? Because with them, they were twins, right? As far as the Primarchs went. So, and apparently they were always just kind of that weird one out of everybody else. So I wonder, because he said that they were just kidnapped by them. Obviously, I don't know the full extent to that, so I don't know. Just kind of trying to piece things together.
Let me introduce the Karlach first, that don't even have any art whatsoever. What they do have is a powerful asshole that can take a pounding, as this regiment has been destroyed and reformed 3 times. First by a Gellerfield failure, another by attrition on a death world, and finally by a Tyranid invasion. I honestly don't know which of these fates is the worst. If I had to be a guardsman, there is a good chance I would choose to be an Ogryn. You're big, you're naive of the horrors of the galaxy, and you get a gold star for every 10 heretics you kill. The Kuruk Ogryn Auxilia stand out above the rest as a literal doomsday weapon.
I think these were those big heavy dudes that I had to kill on Necromunda. Hold on, someone's knocking on the door. Alright, I'm finally back. Now, I'm pretty sure you all already know, for some reason, whenever I try to record, all of a sudden everybody needs me for something, or something happens, or there's so much background noise. And it took a little while, which you can see that I have a different shirt on, and I actually had to take a shower, all that. And remembering from where we left off on, I mentioned that the Ogryn, from what I remember him saying, are it seemed like those were the type of characters I was facing in Necromunda when I was playing it through the first one. And yeah, alright, let's keep going.
These big boys have a huge appetite for destruction and violence as they tear apart tanks with their bare hands. Sometimes the entire regiment is deployed simultaneously, in which case you may as well just have dropped a bunch of nukes due to how much damage that does. Who said pilgrims were bad fighters? Not the Landrian militia, who are a massive regiment made from countless monks and pilgrims who fight in the name of Saint Drossus. Funnily enough, their presence on the Imperial battlefields is likely a misunderstanding, but don't tell them that, as they make for surprisingly effective warriors, or more specifically, meat for the meat grinder. Now onto a super serious regiment, the Lucifer Blacks. This is a situation where the badass name matches their skill, as these elite warriors have fought for mankind since the dawn of the Imperium of Man. Whilst they have gone in and out of service numerous times, mostly due to political bullshit, they have always remained as fierce bodyguards, hand-chosen as the secondary protectors of the Imperial Palace, the first obviously being the Custodes. They wear badass black armor, and some even use power glaives, which is fucking awesome. Something a bit less graceful, we now have the Lugnum Sewer.
Hold on, before I get to them, I didn't hear about those other guys being at all mentioned at any point so far since delving into Warhammer. Obviously, he did mention that they were like, I guess, like the second go-to as far as protecting the palace and the Imperium Men, and the first obviously being the Custodes. But I've never heard one word about them. And obviously, as he said, that they have gone in and out as far as commission wise, so I'm assuming that's probably dealing with it. I mean, so far that's one of the ones that has caught my interest now, just because the way their name, actually the way they looked, and just the picture in general.
Rats. These niche warriors come from a mining world that is the opposite of a paradise. As a result, they became great at fighting in sewers and are just all-round wholesome people. They even stitch vibrant colours into their uniforms despite their world being the opposite, as a way to cheer up their fellow men and women. Sometimes Warhammer is a one-to-one replication of real life, more or less, and no one displays this better than the Maccabean Janissaries, an elite regiment. These highly religious killers never return to their homeworlds once they've joined the Jannies. They more or less forsake their identities as they wear silver masks in battle. They use their faith as well, just as much as their lasguns, and are a serious force to be reckoned with. What do you get when you combine...
Okay, obviously, a lot of these Guardsman regiments take some inspiration from today's world, right? But from the way their mask looked, right, it kind of looked like, if you watched 300, right, the Persians, they had a specific group called the Immortals, I think it was, and they had a mask very similar to that. So I'm assuming that's maybe where they got the inspiration from that, possibly.
and Little Red Riding Hood, flamethrowers, and fatal farts. The Miasman Red Cows. These absolute freaks figured out how to make fuel that burns even hotter than promethium. The trade-off is that it stinks like absolute shit, and nearly every other regiment in the galaxy refused to fight alongside these dudes. They are nicknamed the Fire Skunks for good reason. There are a number of tank legions and regiments in the Imperial Guard. Some of them are linked, such as the Steel Legion and the Minivrian Tank Legion, however the fuck you say it. See, when the Steel Legion skullfucked some heretics on a planet called Minirvia, they were given permission to colonize it. Hence, after a few generations of a bunch of tank lovers fucking each other, we were given the elite Minivrian Tank Legion as a result. Just as if not more so deadly than their ancestors, these blam blam lords rollo their treads over the corpses of the enemy on countless battlefields. Not all Ogryn are fun and naive.
Also, real quick, as far as the Steel Legion, as I like to go back and watch Hell's Reach every now and then, and I did finally see some Steel Legion in there the second time around, just because I had completely confused them with the Cadian shock troops. So, yeah.
Pretty much every Ogryn on the planet of Monglor turned to chaos and are now being painstakingly exterminated by Space Marines. One regiment, which remained loyal however, were the Monglor Ogryn Auxiliates, a fucking tongue twister, who continue to fight in the Emperor's name on Armageddon, doing what they can to uphold their people's honour despite how badly they have fallen. If there is one thing Warhammer has taught me, it's that shitty planets breed hardy people. The modern acid dogs are a great representation of this, as they hail from an inhabitable planet that never sees sunlight and is full of extremely toxic and corrosive acid. Nice. As such, these warriors are beasts, fighting in extremely shitty war zones using a variety of gear and sporting large biceps. Maybe the acid has protein in it, They also hate mutations in any form, which is a bummer for them as living on a toxic acid planet tends to result in their babies getting mutations, then said babies getting dissolved in the acid which gave them the mutations. I love irony. Onto the more Tressan Highlanders.
On top of that, as far as the people from starting in shitty situations and growing up to be really strong mentally, physically, now obviously not everybody, just because, there's certain instances where it can kind of cut their life short, obviously, especially in the Warhammer universe. But, if you manage to make it, I feel like you could do some pretty insane things, right?
Who are a bunch of emos that say that the only thing in life that is important is how you die. As such, they have zero regard for human life and will execute whoever they're told to without a second thought. If I could compare these guys to anyone in real life, it would be the soldiers who took part in the Tiananmen Square massacre. Regiments that are purely dedicated to stealth and ambush are not super common, but the Nocturne Strike Forces more than make up for this. They eat a fuckload of carrots, so their natural night vision is amazing, and they use this to great effect to perform raids, ambushes, assassinations, and just general sneaky shit. These stealthy boys have played a big role in the wars for Armageddon. Now for another Ogryn regiment, we have the Orc and Stone Crushers, who, while I'm sure they could crush stones, it's not their primary purpose. These Ogryns were extremely receptive to the Imperial cult, and they worship the God Emperor like a daddy. They love listening to Imperial priests speak, even though they barely understand what they're saying. Unfortunately for anyone who isn't an Ogryn, the gravity on the planet is immense and barely tolerable, hence humans only make quick trips there. Eventually the planet was turned into a penal colony, just to really fuck with any prisoners sent there, much to the Ogryns' delight, as they find it funny watching people get slowly crushed to death by the gravity of a planet. The Lucifer Blacks aren't the only human...
Real quick, as far as the Ogrins were concerned, I do remember him mentioning that there was only one regiment that stayed loyal. Now, obviously, it would be safe to assume during the Horus Heresy, right, as far as staying loyal, and he said that the rest were corrupted by chaos. Now, would it be safe to say that within that regiment that did stay loyal, eventually now you start getting different regiments of Ogryn, right? Which I kind of just want to say ogre. But I'm assuming that's why, because I started seeing them and it almost looks like they're wearing like Cadian armor, right? Kind of. I could be wrong.
Guardians of the Imperial Palace. The Palatine Sentinels, which is a very sensible name, also guard it. Unlike the Blacks, however, they are significantly less well known in the Imperium, and only really had their time to shine during the hectic Cornite bum rush of the Imperial Palace. Now onto the Paragonian regiments, who are
they kind of look like Jedis, kind of a little bit.
basically just goody two-shoe guardsmen. They are well organised, well armed and well trained. Their recruitment is very sensible and makes a lot of sense as they mostly just promote planetary defence forces to the guard when they're ready. They do have a knack for tanks however, which we love. Now we have the Fantine.
Funny thing, real quick, just like a little quick thing. As far as the spade right here, right? From what I was told when I was in the Marine Corps, right, that the only time you ever got the tattoo of a spade was when you had actually seen combat, right? So I had a few super seniors, so like the guys who were about to get out while I was barely coming into the fleet, who actually had this, and then obviously if there's nothing going on, you're going to see a lot fewer people with it. Some people still got it, which granted you can get whatever tattoo you want, but in the infantry it was just kind of seen as an awkward thing if you hadn't seen any and still got it. But then again, at the end of the day, it's your tattoo, right?
Have a knack for tanks however, which we love. Now we have the Fantine Air Corps and Skyborne. If it wasn't immediately obvious, these guys like to fly. Fair enough, who doesn't? But they can also afford to fly almost exclusively with no troops on the ground unless they drop them on top of you. The drop bears of Warhammer 40k. Praetorian is a really cool world, and the Praetorian Guard are, pretty cool. They look like they're about to shoot up the Congo. The planet of Pretoria is one of extreme wealth inequality. Whilst most of the population are basically slaves, the top 1% are super rich, and as a result their guardsmen look pretty snazzy. Fortunately, this has resulted in some top tier soldiers, so slave on I guess. Potentially the most up themselves regiment, we now...
That one had a very English type feel, just because like the banner, right? Because like with the lion on it, the red and the white, No. I'm also trying to figure out like what kind of to see which ones have a direct correlation. Somebody commented on it a while back in one of the videos, so I would have to look it up. But I'm just trying to see if there's any correlation between the inspiration for it. Obviously some of these kind of feel like they were kind of a throwaway, specifically in the part 1. So just keep an eye on that.
Now have the Prior and Dragoons. Dragoons love to show off, and no one does it better than the Priorans. If you don't understand their super intricate and cringy cuss system, or if you have less than 10,000 followers on Instagram, they look down on you. They refuse to work with other lesser Guardsman regiments, but do they have a point, or are they just being dicks? Well, both. They are great warriors, and they are dicks. Even occasionally refusing commands from superiors from other regiments if they didn't smell nice enough. Now whilst it's fun to pretend that the Catachans are the Space Australians, the truth is we are more like the Rowan Deepers, and GW even said that the Rowan Deepers were based off Aussie soldiers. Poorly equipped, laid back, and incapable of stealth, these chilled out warriors don't have the best reputation, but when it comes to push and shove, they'll have your back. They fought alongside Gaunt's ghosts, which means something. Different motivational tactics are required for different people. For some people it's money, others is glory, but for the Savlar Chemdogs, it's an opportunity to escape their shitty-ass planet. The Chemdogs are prisoners of the shitty toxic world of Savlar, who are surprisingly disciplined and hardy considering they're criminals. I guess if my only chance to escape one of the worst planets in the galaxy was to join the Guard, I would behave as well. Now into the regiments of the Centillion.
It's always good to hear a regiment and then just remember, God, the Warhammer 40k universe, doesn't matter what planet you're on. Every single one seems shitty. Except for maybe Terra, but then again, I would assume it has its own shitty areas. Just nice to reiterate how kind of horrible the living situation is.
Fulusses and Grenadiers, this is giving me flashbacks to my Age of Empires days, which are ongoing. The Grenadiers are extremely elite guardsmen sporting nearly the best gear a mortal can wield. They generally fight as the commander's personal force. The Fulusses actually have one of the coolest gear I've seen, and are taken from the sons and daughters of the noble houses of the world. Once again, like the Grenadiers, the Fulusses are very elite. That's just definitely not how you say it, and people are going to be mad at me in the comments, but that's alright, Aussie slang baby. Often confused for this...
Wait, he said Grenadiers in the beginning, right, when he was introducing them. I don't remember, that was supposed to be Italian or Spaniard? Or... I feel like it's between one of those. I'm not sure. I'm hoping I'm at least have one of the two in there. But if you know, let me know down in the comments. Because I could have sworn I heard him say Grenadiers.
Sexy bombarders, The Semtexian are masters of blowing you up from ages away. Their mining world allows them to build and use large formations of artillery, which they use to great effect due to them being formed after the orcs in the area were getting a bit too loud. Anakin might not like sand, but that doesn't mean everyone else doesn't. Cue the Talaran Desert Raiders, who are from Talaran and raid in the desert. Whoop whoop. These towel-headed warriors are as Arab as they come, wielding curved swords and blowing themselves up. Actually, they don't really do the second part, but you know what I mean. These guys actually fought off the Iron Warriors during the Heresy, which is very impressive. Now onto a bit of a superstar, the Tanith first and only, Gaunt's Ghosts. These...
Okay, before you get into them, I know a lot of you have been talking about them. So I'm very curious to kind of get an overview. And it might even be one of the first type of regiments that I actually try to look deeper in, so...
Dudes had it rough. As soon as they were founded, their home planet was blown up and only one regiment survived. You know, hence the name First and Only. Taken under the wing of Ibram Gaunt, these rookies used a burning vengeance in their souls to become an unstoppable force to be reckoned with. Their stealth and espionage skills are second to none. They fight battle after battle, winning against impossible odds and changing the course of multiple wars. There is nothing more dangerous than men with nothing to lose. Next up is the Terex Guard, who surprisingly aren't pterodactyls.
Well, I can see why they're very popular, or why a whole bunch of people consistently comment it. Right. I mean, what have you got to lose when you've already lost everything, right? Makes for great stories.
I want to kill myself. Not much is written about these dudes, other than the fact that they're good at killing shit and most of them cosplay as a commissar. Kriegi boys ain't the only ones to use shovels. Surprisingly, the tools have effectiveness beyond bludgeoning people to death with. The Truscan snowhounds use them to clear out their driveways during the winter. As their planet is constantly in winter, they're pretty good at it. On top of this, the constant whiteout has resulted in them becoming amazing snipers. No setting would be complete without space Russians. In Mother Valhalla, the vodka drinks you. In seriousness, these fluffy-hatted beasts are a joy. Coming from the ice world of Valhalla, these dudes enjoy long walks on the glaciers and gutter stomping the living fuck out of orcs. They don't retreat, they never surrender, and they love bombing the shit out of the bad guys. Suka bliet. Now onto the Vigilant Guard.
Okay, so that's supposed to be like the Russian counterpart, right? Valhalla, huh? I could have sworn that was more Nordic, but I mean, you know, in any case. I wonder if they would also employ some of the same tactics, right? Like, say, during, like, World War II, right? Where Russia just kind of throwing everything, you know, at their enemy, right? Or at the Germans, obviously.
Guard, who are named due to their planet called Vigilus. Not because they're especially aware or cautious of their surroundings or anything. These guys are so faithful and religious that they get blessings and miracles similar to that of a Sister of Battle. This makes them super resistant to chaos and actually quite inspirational. They're like the Anglican variant of Christianity. Now onto the Vitrian Dragoons, who I must say, look fucking sick. Probably even the best looking guardsmen on this list. Each soldier has a special Bible called the Beata, which they take super seriously. Only a Vitrian can open their own Beata, due to the books being locked with a gene code. They're awesome fighters, and they followed the solid rule of spray and pray. Now onto the Vostrian Firstborn, who have a bit of an awkward history. See, when the Horus Heresy broke out, the Emperor was like, lol, help, and the planet of Vostrian was like, look, we can make you guys tons of weapons, but if we send all of our men to fight, that means we can't make as many weapons, so we're just gonna not fight and we'll just keep making guns. Well, apparently that was the wrong fucking answer, and these dudes are now forced to provide each of their firstborn children to the Imperial Guard, hence the name. To be honest, I feel like their reasoning for not going to direct war was pretty fair, but Gilliman himself was the one that dished out the punishment, so I guess I'm just a fucking idiot. Next up is the...
What do you all think about that? I feel like it was a good point, right? Like, hey, do you need our help? I mean, because obviously it seemed like they were supplying them weapons as well. It's like, do you need our help? Physically, like being there, right? But then we won't be able to make as much weapons to, you know, resupply you. Or if we just stay here and consistently be able to resupply, you know, I mean, I guess it can have as good as pros and cons on either side. What do you think, though?
The Vresh Grenadiers, who are just poor versions of the Cadians. Yeah, that's literally all there is to them. Finally, we have the Xeonian Free Companies, who are... Yeah, they come from Xenon, and yeah, they fought at the Battle of Cadia, and yeah, I don't know, they like Monopoly? Yeah, there's really not much on these guys. Fuck me. We did it. All the Guardsman regiments explained. I'm gonna go have a bat and go to sleep now. And that does us for today, you guys. Every single Guardsman Regiment Explained Part 2.
Alright, let's go ahead and talk about that for a minute. Now, I want to talk about mainly more key on the certain guard regiments that really caught my eye. The first ones, which were kind of caught me by surprise, and it's kind of only for a small reason, but it's the ones that had been kidnapped at one point by the Alpha Legion. Just because I want to see like how the Alpha Legion would be involved in terms of like if they did it for a reason, if they just did it to do it, you know. I don't know. The fact that it was just connected to the Alpha Legion in one little case really intrigued me to kind of try to learn a little bit more about them later on. Another one being the Ogren. I always want to say Ogre for them. It's more of the when he was mentioning that their main thing is that they kind of just want to fight, and they kind of have like, if you think about it, it seems like it's like a human version of an orc, right? And also, it seems to be like a little brother to the Space Marine, kind of in a sense, right? Or at least the way I like to look at it. So, would be curious to know about them. And I think an Ogren is also, was it Slime Marbo? You know what I mean. Obviously, Lucifer Blacks. Mainly because since if they were along for that amount of time, right, like all the way back when the Imperium was coming up, right, I'm assuming there's got to be quite a bit of history on them, or maybe there's not, and really trying to figure out kind of what all that political BS was. Like, maybe were they like too harsh in their methods for what they were doing as far as protecting the Imperium, or just kind of what was the deal there, right? And then the Janissaries, just because I've heard a lot of people talk about them and mention them, and they kind of remind me of like, say, a guardsman version of the like Black Templars. Was the Talaran Deserats, mainly again for a reason, just because they're in the Horus Heresy, they were actually able to fight off the Iron Warriors. Now, I'm not sure if they came back later and just completely decimated them, but the fact that they were able to do that, right, considering the Iron Warriors type of strategy, wouldn't just come to war. Pretty impressive. I mean, regular humans going up against Space Marines, right? And RC technically still human, but not really. Obviously, you know, I'm just gonna say they're not, right? Okay, last ones being the Tanith, the First and Lonely. I've been getting comments about these guys probably since the first couple of videos I ever did of Warhammer, as far as like reacting to it, right? And I kept on hearing about them, and I was like, okay, as soon as I hear it, which I heard it in this video, it's definitely going to be one of the first guard regiments I actually check out a little more in depth. Mainly because of that one line. I don't know if Majorkill wrote this line or if it's in somewhere in the story, that there's nothing more dangerous than someone who has lost everything, right? Or something along those lines, at least paraphrasing, right? So those were kind of really the ones that really stick out to me. Let me know down in the comments if any of the ones stuck out to you, or you have a certain favorite one. In any case, though, that's going to go ahead and be it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, really does help me a lot. Hit that dislike button if you didn't like it. It helps me improve the channel. And leave me a little comment so I know what it was. Maybe it was me smacking my lips. Maybe it's because I changed shirts in the same video. But in any case, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.